I really want to know.
Well, it is Monday, so I guess we should know.
I know. Well, good morning and welcome to the latest episode of the Project Failure Files. This series for anyone who manages people, projects, or processes for a living. I am Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I am Christian Buckley, founder of Collab Talk, and welcome to another episode of our series where Sharon and I explore management and leadership topics from the perspective of what not to do.
And in this episode, we are going to talk about a serious problem: failing to delegate tasks.
Honestly, Sharon, this is one that I don't think I have a problem with personally.
Yeah. I doubt that, Christian, because you, like me, have definitely had the scenario where we're training someone new, maybe somebody we just hired, and you're trying to get them up to speed on a task or project. It's taking longer than you hoped, or maybe they're not doing what you want them to do. And so you just say, it'll just take longer to tell you how to do it, so I'll just do it myself.
Yeah, I will own that. I've done that many times, and it's not that it's not true. I mean, it can take a lot of time and patience to sit and get somebody that's never done something to do it. Not only do what you want them to do, but up to your expectations level. In fact, I'm doing that right now with a couple different things that I can't let go of and hand off. It's not just about skills. It's often a trust issue. Somebody new, I don't know what they're capable of, but you don't give them the chance.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a valid concern. But of course, the problem is that if you withhold those tasks and you don't help them and you don't delegate those tasks out, then that person is not learning, they're not growing. And ultimately, it can have a detrimental effect on them and their well-being in that particular role. I mean, you hired them for their skills and capabilities. They took the role so that they can, not just demonstrate the skills, but maybe even learn more because they just love, learning from you and what you're going to do. But also they want to be challenged and they want to do more than what they are already doing. And by not giving them that opportunity, you're really hurting yourself from, keeping those tasks and not being able to do other things. And you're also hurting them because they're not learning and growing.
Yeah, we're always talking about being crystal clear on roles and responsibilities. And I get that it can be difficult to bring someone new onto a project in the midst of delivery, for example. And there's a difference there. Like, hey, I want to train, I want to be able to delegate this to, but this client is due this weekend. We have to just get it done. It's just a weird timing sometimes of onboarding new people. I think this, though, is something that's more fundamental. If from the start of the project, or the task, you're not allowing people to learn and grow. You're not able to let go of a certain part of that job that they were hired to do. That's a problem.
Yeah, it's about trust, and it's also about accountability.
As always, I know we're going to get into it. I've got some personal stories to share here on this topic. As with every episode, please feel free to comment throughout. If you have examples, stories, suggestions on this topic, reach out, let us know, comment. We will respond to those.
Yep. So let's get started with some definitions.
So I was thinking about this, grabbing all the tasks for yourself. And I know I would say in the last couple of weeks, we're both guilty of this,
It's so true.
Yeah. I've thought about this too, where and this goes back to what kind of a theme we've been talking about the last couple of weeks of kind of this hero complex of some. Which is bad for a manager. But there's a very real thing, especially first-time managers that have a difficult time moving from that individual contributor into that manager role and letting go of some things. And part of what makes it difficult, depending on the culture and the organization, is that a lot of that frontline managers, they still have a lot of individual contributor tasks, things assigned to them. So they're kind of wearing both hats, which makes it more confusing.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it is it's an identity issue too, because as like you said, as people move up into management roles and into leadership roles, and this is something I think is probably even a bigger issue, is that you're not entirely sure what that's supposed to look like sometimes. And so I think, to your point, it's like, well, I know what I'm good at, and I feel good when I do the things that I'm good at, but I don't know how to do that, or I don't feel confident about that yet. And so I'm just going to keep doing the things that I'm good at to make myself feel good. And what ends up happening is that you then kind of create this bottleneck, because you're just continuing to do those independent contributor tasks instead of letting somebody else learn those things. And so what's really ironic about this is that you're, as a manager, likely complaining because you're not able to kind of move up and learn those management skills. And you're doing exactly the same thing downstream to the people that are working with you as well.
There's I think you've read by Eli Goldratt, The Goal.
Oh, I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's for folks that haven't read it, it's a famous management book. And I was introduced to it, in fact, the first tech job that I wrote, I'm trying to remember if it was written in like the late 70s or early 80s or something. It was written a while back. Anyway, so early 90s, I read it. And so it stuck with me my entire career. But part of it is in this story, it's written as a novel rather than a management book, but it's a management book. And this guy who's a plant manager, he's also a Boy Scout leader. And he's on this hike with like a dozen boys. Each of the boys have different skill sets. And he's realizing that the leaders are in the back. And if they have the kids who are the strongest hikers in the front and the weakest one at the back, then they disappear up ahead, and they lose sight of them because they're stuck behind the slow kid. Well, then he started experimenting and put the slowest kid in the very front, and everybody was frustrated and like trying to find and optimize that. And part of the realization there is that there's not a perfect optimization for that. And it was changing it for different terrains, for different scenarios, taking breaks, taking turns, to be able to teach the boys this lesson, to get them to be more aware of, of the path and the terrain and what they're trying to do, and to care more about the performance of the overall team. Anyway, a lot of fantastic lessons out of it. But that's the visual that I get out of this process, that you become the bottleneck for this, to the growth, the path of others. You may sometimes be at the front of the line, but now you're up over the hill. You've disappeared from the rest of your troop, from the rest of your team, and that's not good. It's also then not safe for you. Could be bears, mountain lions, over that bend. So it's something that ultimately, work is a team sport.
Yeah.
And so you need to think about the team's progression.
Life is a team sport. I work as a team sport. Life is a team sport. I think ultimately, the important thing to take away from this is that, not delegating tasks out. And really, it doesn't matter what role you're in, right? If you're not delegating tasks out, then you are a task hoarder, and you are not sharing with others.
Yeah.
And you're keeping them from something that's amazing. And we think about, it also creates all kinds of cultural rifts too, right? So we think about things like people don't trust each other, or we don't have a future leader pool to draw from because they're not, learning and growing. People don't want to be accountable in the right ways because maybe they don't give the full story, or they're not, honest about, what tasks they're doing because they don't want to lose the tasks that they do have. And so I think at the end of the day, when you have kind of this open framework of people, everybody kind of pitching in and helping with the work that needs to be done, as opposed to somebody that is kind of bottlenecking and streamlining the tasks, I think you foster this, like you were saying, this kind of whole group mentality of everybody's kind of on the same page, and it's shared ownership.
You just made me think too. My mind went to like watching the team challenges on Survivor.
Yes.
And when those where somebody said, "Screw you, I'm just going to do this piece of it," it's like it hardly ever worked out.
Yeah, the rest of the team just stands there and watches.
Right.
And get mad at the end when they lose.
Yeah, let me do the puzzle by myself. Stop messing with it. Like
There's always one. There's
never
always
worked out.
one every season.
And they're the one that gets voted out first. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yes. So here we go. Life lessons from Project Failure Files. If you get on Survivor, do not be the person that says, I'm going to do the puzzle by myself. Got it. Got it.
Yeah. Well, you look at the ones who always do so well are the ones that, at least pretend to be the team players and everyone's best friend. So
there you go.
Lesson to be learned there.
Yep.
Then stab them in the back at the end.
So moving on to project and cultural impacts, not talking about stabbing people in the back.
That's a good. Hey, there's a lesson right there. Don't stab people in the back. Well, there's probably something to take. Topic. It's probably something to learn from that. Yeah,
probably.
I don't know what it is. We'll have to figure that out. But
if we talk about culturally how it impacts people if we don't delegate tasks out properly, right? So we task hoard. Ultimately what we see is we see this very uneven balance of workload. So if we think about the idea of even on a small team, so let's say we have a project manager and, 4 or 5 other people that are working with that project manager. If the project manager is doing the lion's share of certain types of tasks and not delegating some of those out to some of their team, then ultimately there becomes this very uneven amount of workload. And so there becomes things like everything from stress and burnout all the way to resentment.
Right. There's early in my career, I was in that situation where I felt I was constantly having to go to one of the more senior people. It's like, do you have something else that you need me to do? I gave you this stuff. Yeah, I'm done with that. Give me more to go and do. What else can I be doing here? And it was frustrating. I didn't last very long in that role. I enjoyed a lot of aspects of that, but I couldn't stand the fact that because they were just throwing out bones rather than structure this so I own more of this. We can accomplish more together than individually. The person just couldn't let go of those tasks. And a couple of years later, and I had moved up into a new role, different, major company, and they were in that same hourly job. Nothing wrong with hourly folks. I'm just saying, but he was not being paid much, but was in that same role 2-3 years later, hadn't progressed and was doing it the same way. And it was, I could see it for what it was there. So individuals get burned out. Teams feel underutilized, distrusted, disengaged. It's not a good feeling. And then they just be like, hey, there's no challenge here. I should be looking for another job.
Well, and on top of that, when they do leave or if they leave, then, it's like all of that tribal knowledge goes with them. Yeah. And nobody has really learned how to do any of those tasks, and nobody has really grown as part of that process. And so, everything just shifts every single time.
And this is something that leaders need to watch out for with their managers, is to make sure that these managers are not hoarding to make themselves look good, or they just have a problem with delegation. That's something where working with new managers, and 2 things, delegation and succession, 2 conversations and that's actually, we should add that topic.
Put it on the list. Yep. Well, and what it ends up doing too, is it creates that kind of manager role, not just that hero role, but it also makes, I think, other people looking at that particular role think, oh, well, if I want to be a manager, then I'm also going to have to kind of be that burnout type role. And so instead of modeling a balanced workload and modeling a team spirit, you're modeling this kind of manager as a martyr kind of syndrome. And so everybody else is like, well, I don't want to be a manager because I don't want to have to work 80 hours a week. And I think there's just better ways to do that.
Their great example is someone very close to me, who is in management training, but looks around at some managers that are, career track, not married, no kids, who do not put up barriers and have created a culture of unrealistic expectations for that next role, which is discouraging. They're looking for people to step up, and nobody wants to step up because of that unrealistic picture. So again, it hurts that culture, the succession planning, the growth, the career, where it's an unhealthy, unrealistic look at what that's like. And like my advice is like, well, you need to help, lead them, guide them from below. Like, hey, there's a better way of doing this. You need to be, part of it is go home when you should be going home. Don't, take this on, spread it around, delegate the tasks to the people that should own these things. And sometimes, like my first job in tech, it was conversation with my manager. I shared this a couple of episodes back, where on Friday I'm working late and he's getting ready to lock the doors. He's like, it's 7:00. He's like, go home. He actually got upset that I was still there. He says, well, clearly we got the delivery date wrong. It's going to take longer, or we need to get you some help and delegate some things out. It's just not healthy to have a culture where you're just constantly burning through all of your people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, this is something, I mean, I can say personally that I've, worked through a lot of this, especially as a small business owner and having managed practices and things like that, is that ultimately you have to figure out a way to say, okay, how can I delegate this work out in a way that's going to make sense? Because if you don't, it's a very real path to, creating health crisis, or we're not, we're even talking to some degree, there are people who work themselves all the way into a hospital bed.
Right.
Yeah. So, we definitely don't want things to get to a point that they're not managed.
Right. No, I mean, do you think of the pitfalls here? Burnout, inefficiency of process, apathy from the team, that just because they're never trusted. There was like, well, then why do we care? Just whatever. Bottlenecks around those people that are taking on too much. There's lack of scalability. They're not letting the process work for them. And that then creates that leadership, that stunted pipeline of who are our next leaders. No one's interested in stepping up because they think if that's what being a leader in this company means, I'm not interested. Yeah. And that's just all too realistic.
Exactly.
Well, thinking of, if these stories weren't enough, I mean, there's so many. I think most of the companies I work for, I've seen examples of this, of people not properly delegating. They're not, sharing the workload there, and for different reasons. I mean, sometimes it's to gain power, by having control over those things, and it's funny. Working with clients, and would always use like the whole concept of the 80-20 rule. Like if you can get 80% of what you want for 20% of the time, or whatever it is. I mean, you can use the ratio in a bunch of different ways, but it's like you get most of what you need for a lesser cost. Is that sufficient to move forward? How often are we like, what are the reasons why you and I, Sharon, are having a difficult time delegating some of those tasks? Like for me, it's as simple as what I said earlier. It's because it would take me longer to explain it and to be able to hand that off than it would be just to do it myself, even though that means I've been filling my time doing these kind of tasks on weekends, trying to catch up, all this time when I could have trained people. Mm-hmm. Did I really save time by keeping it?
Well, and I was just thinking, I was thinking about my brain like flooded into stories, and I was thinking about it. And, what's really interesting is if I think all the way back to when I was really young and early in my corporate career, I do remember being in roles where I really did have good managers that would come and they would give me work to do. And I remember, this is something I want to say, we are the people who are saying, those kids, but I hear a lot about people complaining, that's not my job, right? Why are you giving me this work? That's not my job. But I can honestly tell you, that when I was younger, I had managers who would come and bring me work. And I had a lot of people around me being like, why are you doing their work for them? And I'm like, I'm not doing their work for them. They're giving me an opportunity to participate in a role that I'm not at yet. And so I'm excited to be able to participate. And did it put a little bit of extra load on my plate? Yes. But did it give me an opportunity to learn the role that was above me? Absolutely. So I think this is one of those things that we really don't think about, is that, there's this very big cultural shift in, not taking on anything outside of your actual role. And I'm going to say right now, I think that's one of the things that really helped me to grow, was having the opportunity to do things that were outside of my role.
Yeah. I worked for a couple companies where they had like official, like you go get approved, where you actually spend X amount of your time shadowing somebody else, and you negotiate the times and when and the various tasks and things. But it's almost like getting approved to go training and be like, hey, I'm going to be a day a week for the next 3 months. I'm going to be in this training course, this certificate program, or I'm going to be shadowing this other role, learning this other role, or again, sending engineers off to sit with the product team for a week or two to become more familiar, then bring back that knowledge to the team was invaluable. So great to bring that back in. I actually, I have a preference for having done my MBA while working full time, because I was able to, and they encouraged this with everything that we're learning in each of the classes, was to apply it to our day jobs. In fact, it was required that you could not be a full-time student. You had to be a working individual. And I thought that was brilliant, because I was able to apply almost everything. Accounting, no, I did not do that side of it. There's a little bit of that with budgeting for projects and things, but not to what we're learning. The double, I told my teacher then, I will never use this double entry accounting ever again. And it's true. I never used it again. I own an HP 12C calculator, which I've not used since I finished my degree in 1999. But I still have it though. It's being able to go and apply those things is, it's invaluable to that. I was able to also then share that knowledge with other people on the team. So it's not just that it benefited me and my growth. I was then able to go to others and share some of what so it benefited by it being delegated those tasks to me, and me taking on more allowed me to go and then share that with other people of my peers on that team and do more together. So we actually, it benefited from learning from others and then taking that back. And it goes back to networking science. That's how a lot of networks grow and expand, because you have separate networks, and then you have connector personalities that move in between the various networks that bring back knowledge between them and relate it, contextualize it for each of those networks, and it grows each of those networks. So I know that's a completely different topic. I used to read a lot of books on networking science, social networking science.
Yeah, fascinating topic to talk about.
There's a lot to talk there, but about how people learn, and so much more comes through the peer-to-peer than you think. So, well, thinking about strategies for overcoming this issue.
Yeah, I think you have to start with trying to figure out why, right? Why are we acting this way? Why are we not delegating tasks out? And the truth of the matter is, there's all kinds of different reasons why people don't delegate tasks out. Sometimes, we want it to be a certain way. Maybe we're a little perfectionistic. Maybe we're concerned that we're not going to be able to meet our deliverables. And so we're like, maybe, whether it's internal or external clients, they're used to things being a certain way at a certain level. And if somebody else comes in, it's not going to be that same thing. Maybe you've had bad experiences, bringing somebody else in to help you to delegate those tasks out. The real thing is, why is it that you're limiting yourself from delegating those tasks out? And what lessons have you learned in the past to be able to maybe, do that in a better way?
Yeah. One way that would help, going back to like the onboarding process, is to spend some time, maybe over a day or two, with each of your peers or the coworkers or peer teams within an organization to better understand who they are, what they're capable of, what they do, so that you better understand, where can I ask somebody else to take on this? Where can I delegate this to, or go for help, go for more information? So that, again, goes back to the importance of that employee onboarding and understanding the role and responsibility and the skills of the other people that we work with. And that kind of leads me to another book reference, which I mention all the time, is one of my favorite books, but on this topic, is by Marcus Buckingham and some other guy. Marcus is the key. First, Break All the Rules. And what's wonderful about this book, and it's like, I used to buy stacks of these and give them to anybody that I hired, any of my direct reports, whether full-time or contractor. I'm like, you need to read this book and better understand. But the concept was about, the first key is to understand people's skills, their strengths. And it has the whole strength finder and the part of it in the back, and a workbook for as part of that. And then to build your teams and give people assignments based on their strengths, not give them things that they're going to fail at. And give them things that that they're weak on, and insist they must be good at everything. Like, no, build your team structure it based on the strengths, and leverage that. And when you understand people's strengths, you understand their skills, you'll start building super teams that are able to accomplish more, because you can build it, structure it in a way to give everybody the things that they are best at.
Yeah, I think about this as a lot as we kind of move into this era of AI, right? As we think about what AI is going to do for us. And a lot of people are really afraid that AI is going to take their job. And this is a big concern that people have. They're scared of AI, either having access to things that shouldn't or doing their job. And the truth of the matter is, I think a lot about task delegation and how does AI fit into that? And how does this, help us from a culture perspective? And I think if you think about it from the fact that it's going to do all those monotonous things, it's going to leave us the bandwidth to do the things we're really great at, because it can take over some of those more monotonous actions. And I think you're going to see people being able to move more into their zone of genius and, be able to do that. And so when we think about delegation, we think about, what are some of the ways that you can overcome not delegating things? I think, if we think about what it is that we need to delegate, so take a full list of all of the tasks that we need to do, and then we think, who can do what, and whether that's AI doing some of the monotonous tasks, or people on my team that maybe can take some of the mid-tier tasks, and then maybe I retain some of those expert level tasks for now until somebody else is trained up on them. Now, all of a sudden, I've given myself the bandwidth to be able to let other people or tools do the things that they need to do, and then go back and hold them accountable for doing them. But I'm now given that freedom to do some of those things that are kind of more in my zone of genius.
Yeah. I like you just threw around the word genius there, Sharon, when referring to yourself. I know. I just wanted you to know that I saw what you did. So
yes.
I think with all this, driving accountability, having purpose behind the delegation. So again, going back to what we always talk about, having a structure, having clearly defined roles and responsibilities, all those kind of basic things can help with all of this. being accountable is ultimately, if I know that, if I say, Sharon, you're accountable for this project. Why was he doing this task, which should have been yours? And have a conversation. Then you can have a hard conversation like, Steve didn't let go of this thing. I tried, but he's going to do that. Here's why we had this. There's caused a bottleneck. It caused some issues here, but he did that thing. You can have that conversation, and it would probably better conversation would be up front while it's going on, and get back to a manager and say, hey, this is something that, and it's not like a tattletale and, hey, Steve's not letting go of this task, it should be mine. It's more of a, hey, have concern that we're not being efficient, we're not being effective. This is something that, as his manager, maybe you need to go have a discussion with him so I can do my job and be accountable for the things that I'm accountable for. So it helps with the structure. It helps to clarify kind of all those things. Like a best practice for all of this is, again, to be very open about the discussions. If I'm asking my team, my direct reports, what's working, what's not working, is there anything about the way that I'm working that is causing you frustration, or is it blocking you? Like, please speak up. Tell me, yes, Christian, you're blocking me. It's like, well, you're fired, so not a problem now. No, it's I know, but to have it takes a while for people to open up and have those kinds of conversations, but it's so invigorating to be able to have a conversation and speak very plainly about, hey, you're doing this. People might not even be fully aware that they're doing that they're hoarding tasks.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this on so many episodes, but this is why it's so important to have, this level of trust within your organization and within your team, is because that way you can let go of things and trust that they will get done, or trust that that person has your back, or trust that they're going to take care of it in the way that you would expect. And so some ways to do this is, sometimes just kind of start small. Let people have one or two things, try it out, see how it goes, make sure that they understand what's going on, and then be excited when they do something well.
Yeah. Recognize the wins, celebrate the wins, discuss what didn't work on the project and why, how you can improve. I said, doesn't make sense to dwell on failures and those things. You don't want to compound, then make people go even more quiet and dark, look inward, but to be thinking about what's the right thing for the team, for the organization, for the structure, our process, our framework. And so focus on, okay, hey, we weren't as efficient here. How can we improve on that? Where can we do better? All right, let's do better. Let's do better next time. And let's look at the measurements there. I think if you can be clinical in your approach to that, people then aren't as afraid to fail at things, which could be another reason why they're not letting go of things. They're afraid, if I let go of it, it won't get done the right way. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this, in kind of the list of things, the feedback loops, the mechanisms of the conversation that's ongoing is so critical. Not everybody's going to raise their hand in a team meeting and share something that they were unhappy with that a teammate did or didn't do. So having anonymous forms, anonymous feedback, as well as, the team or group or one-on-one, whatever that is, have all of those methods available to them to provide feedback on.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, you really just want to make sure that you're keeping track of what's going on, because, we've talked about reporting tools, and we've talked about, making sure that there's kind of like equitable balance within the team. And I do think it's really important to make sure that you're, understanding who's doing what, so that you don't have maybe one team member carrying all of the weight, whether that's a team member or a manager, it doesn't matter. We want to make sure that, for the most part, things are kind of divided up fairly. And I don't like to use the word equally. I do like to use the word equitably, because I think that it's, making sure that everybody's doing whatever it is that they're designed to do.
Right. Well, that's why it's kind of what one of the calls to action here is to do a skills inventory, and understand that. Again, understand what the strengths are of each of your people, what they're passionate about, what they enjoy doing, what they're actually good at. Those could all be 3 different things right there. But have that inventory put together so that when a project comes in, somebody may seem like, hey, they're 95% their book solid, but this is their passion project. Be like, hey, Sharon, we got this new project XYZ, which touches on this technology that you love. Like, any way you could fit this in, you're like, got it, I could do that.
I'll drop all this other stuff and just get it done. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, the dropping it was not an option. It was just to add this in. But
fine, be that way. Yeah, no, I agree. If you kind of know what people can do, then you can kind of figure out how to balance things a little bit better. And ultimately, I do think it's really important that you make sure that you know how you're going to share those responsibilities out, that it's not just a task list that's being assigned, but that the whole team is participating in the division of how you're doing things.
One other call to action, it's kind of a challenge out there, is find some tasks, and I'm sure we all have multiple that could be delegated, and intentionally identify something. And if you don't know, ask somebody else. Get outside of your own ecosystem, your own brain, get over yourself, and ask somebody else, but come up with one item that you can delegate, and then just track that. Like, truly let go of it, let somebody else go and take it and own it. And hey, share your feedback on that. We'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, we need project failure files. Did you delegate your task today?
Yes. It'll be on the test, people. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Please be sure to follow and subscribe out on the new YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/@projectfailurefiles, and you can find us there. Hit the bell to get notifications for all news. And then, of course, we'll be back next Monday and every Monday after that. So thanks for coming. And Sharon, thanks a lot.
Yep. See you next time.